Hi there. My name is Damon Givehand, if you don't already know. And today marks day one of the Yoga Sutra ChantBack Challenge for Chapter 2, Sādhana Pāda. We've already done a ChantBack Challenge for Chapter 1, Samādhi Pāda, which talks about what yoga is. Like the first 7 sutras, the second sutra specifically, gives a definition from Patañjali of what yoga is. And the Yoga Sutras of Patañjali are the authoritative text that explicitly explains what yoga is and how to attain it. Different from the Bhagavad Gita, which I love also as an authoritative text, but it's not as explicit. It's figurative and I would say more poetic. You really have to dig into like those deeper parts of your soul to really understand it. You have to be prepared for it to resonate with you. The Yoga Sutras of Patañjali can be studied by anybody. And as you study it, you will develop the resonance with this material, if you don't already have it. For many of us, it's right there. Because, like I said, it just says it like it is. And here it is. Now, what I will say is that I bring a unique voice to the Yoga Sutras of Patañjali in that I'm unconventional. And if you know what the word conventional means, it means that there has been a formal body of people or authorities that have come together and agreed on what certain things mean, how certain things need to be presented to the public. And I'm not that guy. You know, I've come to the Yoga Sutras of Patañjali with fresh eyes. And a lot of times I walk away with a fresh way to explain what the Yoga Sutras are really trying to say. And I've been connecting dots for a long time. And I really love people. I'm like, man, hold on. That's not what I got from this, you know, which is why I think there's such a value to knowing what the words mean. Because if we always rely on other authors, authorities, to tell us what the Yoga Sutras mean, we have to take their word for it, right? But if you know what the words mean, then you can come to the sutra that has all the words put together, and you can look at the syntax, the order and arrangement of those words, and you can really let the words speak to you, and you can derive your meaning in a personal way. You can internalize this stuff. So I'm a big fan of that, you know, because I think that yoga is a science of life that was created by human beings for human beings. It wasn't created for like a special part of humanity, right? Although those of us who are ready to study something like this to accelerate our growth are special, but it's not an exclusive activity. Anybody's invited. You know, if it really speaks to you, if it calls you to it, then study it. But you shouldn't have to wait to be invited by some other member of the club, if you know what I mean. So I bring unconventional eyes to this stuff, and I am able to connect some very unique dots and walk away with a unique understanding. Now, I won't say that a lot of what I am teaching is very different from what the conventional school of thought or conventional wisdom says that this stuff means. But sometimes it's just a slight difference, very slight difference. Now, we won't notice much difference in the first 7 or 8 sutras that we talk about in chapter 2, Sādhana Pāda, but you know, in the grand scheme of things, when we talk about the whole package, it does get different. Like you'll notice back here, I have a book that I wrote called Yoga, Truth, and the Real Fountain of Youth. Now, that book, you know, you can really get a taste of how the dots I connect are unique, you know, because the Yoga Sutras of Patañjali really do have to do with the fountain of youth, which is something that all of us have literally inside us. It's in our brain. You have to read the book to really, you know, learn what that is. But again, I'm unconventional because I didn't go to school with these people. I don't agree with these people. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. Let's get back to the subject matter at hand. The Yoga Sutra ChantBack Challenge for Chapter 2, Sādhana Pāda. But before I go there, let's review the first 7 sutras of chapter 1. I'm just going to recite those sutras, and I'm going to let you go back to watch the videos that you still have access to. If you hover over the resources tab at my website, damongivehand.com, you'll notice the Yoga Sutra ChantBack Challenge. If you hover over that, then it'll open up another string of links to the right, Yoga Sutra 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, all the way up to 1.7. And I share videos of those that really walk through the swara marks, which are the special demarcations that we have in the transliterated form of the sutras that tell you when it's a high note, a middle note, or a low note so that you know how to chant it. But I also give a word for word breakdown there. Okay, so check that out, so that you know how to define yoga, like how Patañjali defines yoga. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. But anyway, let me chant the first 7 sutras of chapter 1, and then we'll talk about the first sutra for chapter 2. Okay? So chapter 1 begins with Atha Yoganushāsanam Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodhaha Tada Drashtuhu Swarupe Avasthanam Vritti Sarupyam Ittaratra Vrittaya Panchatayaha Klishtaha Pramana Vipayaya Vikalpa Nidra Smrtayaha Prayaksha Anumana Agamaha Pramanani. Okay, those were the first 7 sutras of chapter 1. And again, the very first sutra says, now begins the experiential teaching of yoga. All right. Sutra 2 says yoga is when all the activities of the mind have been completely stilled. That's the definition of yoga. When all the activities of the mind have been completely stilled. Right? And then it says in Sutra 3, then the seer, which is who you really are, abides in its own nature. Right? Then you can see who you are truly, right? When all the activities of the mind have been completely still. Then 4 says at other times we have a tendency to identify with the patterns of thought, right? The activities of the mind, right? Like we think we are those things that we think, basically. And then we have, the activities of the mind are the source of our pain or not. Right? They don't have to cause pain, but they can, and they often do. And then we go into, okay, what are the activities of mind? Pramana, Viparya, Vikalpa, Nidra, Smrtayaha. Then we talk about, okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty of what each one of those activities of mind mean, or what they look like. And Yoga Sutra 1.7 talks about the 3 criteria that have to be met in order for it to be correct perception, which is the first activity of mind. So the 5 activities are correct perception, incorrect perception, then we have imagination or creativity, right? Constructive thinking. Then we have deep dreamless sleep, and then finally we have smriti, which is memory, which is how it's often translated. But when you think about memory and you think about the word smriti, it's spelled S, the transliterated form is, you can listen to the sound too, S-M-R-T-I. But when you look at the first, this is what I mean by unconventional. The first 4 letters are smart. Now, when you think about our capacity to learn, right, you have to bring in with you your old experience so that you have that to draw on. Like, I teach mathematics at the local junior college, for instance, and you can't really do high-level algebra if you don't know arithmetic, right? So you have to have some memory of what we've done before so that we can build on previous knowledge. So smriti, memory, right? Smart. This is what it really gets down to, but a lot of times you'll hear people just say, you know, smriti just means memory. It doesn't just mean memory. Memory has to do with the capacity to learn, which is what makes us smart. And this is what I mean by connecting unique dots that I don't hear people talking about often. And then the next Sutra 1.7, it goes into the 3 criteria that describe pratyaksha or correct perception. Not pratyaksha, that's the first criteria of pramana. Sorry about that, y'all. Pramana is the first activity of mind. So you got pramana, viparya, vikalpa, nidra, smriti. All right, pramana then is described, gone into further detail in Sutra 1.7. And pratyaksha is the very first criteria. Pratyaksha, then it's anumana, agamaha, pramanani. So those 3 criteria, pratyaksha, anumana, agamaha. Right? And I talk about that. So go back and watch those videos. All right. Are you ready for me to chant the very first sutra of chapter 2? Because chapter 1 is Samādhi Pāda. It defines what yoga is, and it tells how to attain yoga. And samadhi is a prerequisite development in order to being able to practice or achieve yoga, I should say, in order to achieve yoga, a state of yoga. Then Sādhana Pāda, chapter 2, is okay, then what does yoga look like in action? If we're doing yoga, then what? What does it look like? How do I know I'm doing yoga? Doing action yoga. So we're talking about karma yoga or kriya yoga. And this is the very first sutra of chapter 2. Tapaha swadhyaya ishvara pranidhanani kriya yogaha. Did you hear that? Kriya yogaha. At the end, kriya means action. Yogaha is yoga. So now we have these 3 things that have to be met. These 3, again, criteria that must be met in order for an action to be considered a yogic action. Right? Tapaha. Right? That's the first one. Right? What's the second one? Swadhyaya is the second one. And then Ishvara Pranidhana Dva, or Pranidhana, right? Those are the 3 criteria, and we're going to talk about that in greater detail. So I'm really happy that you decided to participate in the Yoga Sutra ChantBack Challenge as an opportunity to learn what yoga is in a greater way. I think all yoga teachers and instructors need to practice this stuff. You know, if we don't know the Yoga Sutras of Patañjali, the explicit, like, this is the authoritative text, y'all. You know, if we don't know what yoga is, then what are we teaching? What are we instructing our students? And if we're serious students, we should study this stuff, right? Because if we're practicing yoga, if we don't know what yoga is, then what are we really practicing? So I'm a big fan of this. I'm a proponent, and I am doing everything I can to really draw people's interest into this stuff because it's so fascinating and it's so practical. And it's not, yoga is not what people think it is, right? It's so much more than that stuff you see people doing on a mat. For instance, before I let you go, I will say this: the stuff that we see, that we do ourselves and that we see other people doing on the mat, yoga, it's important. It's important. But if we don't know what yoga is, then we won't know if we're actually doing yoga or if we're just doing gymnastics, some fancy gymnastic form of calisthenics. So we have to know what yoga is. Otherwise, it's not really yoga. It just kind of looks like a small part of yoga. Now you have to know, and later on in chapter 2, it does describe Ashtanga yoga, which Ashtau, it means 8, Anga means limbs. So Ashtanga yoga is talking about the 8 limbs of yoga, okay? Asana, what people in the West call yoga on a mat, is really just 1 out of 8 limbs of Ashtanga yoga. And Ashtanga yoga is Kriya yoga. Like, this is what yoga looks like when we're doing it, right? And it has to include these three criteria: tapaha, swadhyaya, and ishvara pranidhana, which I talk about in our very first video after this, right? When I get into the nitty gritty of it. But if you were going to work every day, driving out of your neighborhood, and you saw somebody shooting free throws, you know, on a hoop that they put up on their garage, and all you saw them doing was shooting free throws. This is all they ever did. You never saw them dribble a ball. You never even saw them spin a ball on their finger. You never saw them pass a ball to anyone else. All you ever saw them doing was shooting free throws every single day. Like, yo, this dude is a free throw fanatic. This is what he does. Would you call that person a basketball player if that's all they did? No, you wouldn't. You would call that person a free throw shooter, okay? A basketball player does so much more than just shoot free throws. Now, then the question is, Damon, are you really diminishing yoga on a mat or free throws? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Because how many times have we seen basketball games won in the final moments of that game at the clutch based on free throws? So if you want to win, you better know how to shoot some free throws, right? So if you want to win in the game of life, then you should practice asana, which is yoga on a mat. But you better know what yoga is, right? It better be meeting three criteria that really define or like describe or qualify a yogic action, right? Tapaha, swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhanani, kriya yoga, kriya, action yoga. This is what it looks like when we're actually doing it. So anyway, I'm very happy and pleased that you are joining me for this ChantBack challenge. And I'm going to stop the film right now so that we can turn pages and you can go watch the video where I share the sweater marks, and I also break down the word for word meaning of the very first sutra so that you know what those three things are that qualify yogic action. Okay? Love you, and I will see you on the other side later.